If you've been stuck playing older games like Dark Souls or Final Fantasy X at 30 frames per second on Linux and wondering if there's anything you can do about it, this video is for you. I'm going to show you how to install and use Lossless Scaling on Linux. Lossless Scaling is a program that lets you use frame generation even on graphics cards or games that do not natively support it. And unlike Autoscaler, you don't need to mess with DLS injection or anything like that. LS is supported only on Windows, but thanks to Pancake TAS, it can be used on Linux. I found LS is best used on games that have a frame rate cap. So games like Dark Souls or Final Fantasy X, which have a 30 frames per second limit, you can double up to 60, or a game like Final Fantasy XII, which has a frame rate limit of 60 frames per second, you can use LS to get 120 frames per second. First thing you need to do is buy Lossless Scaling on Steam. It's cheap, and sometimes you can get it on sale. Download and install it. You could try to run LS, but it'll fail like it does here. What you need to do now is download LSFG-VK. If you're running CachyOS like I am, you can use the package manager to install it. Just search the repo for LSFG-VK, and it'll be the only result. Once you get that downloaded, run LSFG-VK, and it'll open the configuration GUI. Find the game you want to use LS on in Steam, and click play. I tested this first on Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition because that has a frame rate limit of 30 frames per second, as you can see in the Mango HUD overlay. Go to the game settings, then properties, and then add proton_use_wow64 equals 1. This environmental variable is required for LS to work, at least with the Steam games I tested. Now go back to LSFG-VK and click on Create New Profile. Under General Properties and next to Profile Name, click on the search icon. This is going to bring up a list of currently running processes. Select the game you want to use LS with, in my case, Dark Souls, and then restart the game for changes to take effect. And now, as you can see, I'm getting 60 frames per second. Just for funsies, I changed the multiplier in the LS GUI to 4 just to see what happens. And I'm getting 120 frames per second. You don't need to restart the game when you make changes to the multiplier. There's a little bit of distortion and artifacting, but overall, it's pretty smooth. I also really suck at this game. To really show the difference, I recorded the opening scene of Final Fantasy X twice. Once without Lossless Scaling at 30 frames per second, and again with Lossless Scaling at 60, and I slowed down the video to 25%. You can see the 60 frame per second clips are much more smooth than the 30 frames per second clips. And here's Final Fantasy XII, which is capped at 60 frames per second, but with Lossless Scaling, I have it running in the low 100s. What happens when I try to use Lossless Scaling on a game that doesn't have a frame rate cap? I enabled LS for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just to see what happens. Typically, I'll get 80 to 100 frames per second using TAA. I have a Radeon card, so no DLSS for me unless I'm using Autoscaler. Using LS, I saw a lot of artifacts and distortion even when using the 2x frame rate multiplier, and no increase in performance. If anything, I think I lost some performance. You can even use Lossless Scaling for emulators like Cemu, which will let you play Twilight Princess and Wind Waker at 60 frames per second. Both games natively run at 30. In my experience, the best way to use Lossless Scaling is so you can get past in-game frame rate caps, and only if you want to double it. You'll see some graphical glitches and artifacts if you try to triple or quadruple, but the option's there if you want it. Lossless Scaling isn't meant to replace any in-game frame generation options. Hopefully this guide showed you how to install and properly use Lossless Scaling on Linux. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it to be helpful, and don't forget to subscribe for more Linux gaming tips. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.